Hey, yo, hello, what's going on? It is Adrian. I'm back with another video, and this one I'm excited for. It is my inaugural quarterback rankings for 2024, the initial rankings. And before I do rank them, I want you guys to know this is it's not going to be like who I think is the best to the worst starters. It's going to be how I think the quarterbacks are going to do in the year 2024 in the upcoming season. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that before I get into it so that if you see somebody that's very talented below someone that's not, that you don't think is as talented, it's because I think they're going to do better with their team, okay? So, without further ado, let's hop right in to the rankings. And at 32, I have Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett with the Patriots. He just got re-signed to the Pats. He was on the Brownies um, the year before. No, he was on the Commanders. Sorry, the year before. And yeah, I don't know. He's just not gonna move the needle with the Patriots. It's a bad offense. Let's see his stats before his previous stats. He played 16 games, 2,608 yards, 12 touchdowns to 6 picks, and then rushing he ran for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not a bad quarterback. I personally think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks, but he's going to a Patriots team that just doesn't have much going on for him. They have maybe Kendrick Bourne is the number one receiver. He would be a number two on most teams. They got Hunter Henry at tight end. He's a touchdown machine, so he can hit him a bunch. Ramondre Stevenson, Alex Van Pelt is calling the plays. I don't know what to think of him. He came over from the Browns, I believe. I'm not a huge fan, and the O line isn't that great either. A lot of question marks on the O line. So honestly, I don't like. I think Jacoby Brissett is being thrown back there just because they know they're going to be bad. But there's no way he even starts the whole season. Drake May is, of course, he was a first round pick, very high round, and he's definitely going to be in at some point in the year. So Jacoby Brissett won't be in for very long. Hence, I have him at 32. I don't think Drake May will be able to do much with this offense either. But yeah, I like Jacoby Brissett, and I hope he does better than 32 overall. But that's who I have at 32. Moving to 31, it's my boy, Daniel Jones. What have I done to my boy? Yeah, coming off a big injury, he didn't look good before the injury. He didn't look good in the preseason. He hasn't looked good in training camp. He just hasn't looked good. He hasn't looked in very command of the offense. And there's not much behind him, though, either, so he's going to be starting. Um, Last year, he did play in 6 games, threw for 909 yards, 2 touchdowns to 6 picks. Yikes. He ran for another 206 yards and a touchdown. He's known to be able to run too. He's like a dual threat guy, but he just looks so skittish back there. The O line does him no favors, and he's been so beat up over the past 5 6 years that I think he's shot as a starting quarterback. I think he's done. We'll see. I hope he does good. They did draft Malik Neighbors to help him out. They got Wandale in the slot, Jalen Hyatt, Slayton, Singletary's going to be running the ball. I do like Dayball as a play caller, so I think he's got that going for him. It should help him out with Neighbors there too. The O line, they did add a lot of people, but it's still questionable. And with Daniel Jones' injury issues as well, I can't put him really. I don't know who else to even put him ahead of. Maybe the rookies, but we'll see where I have them ranked. I don't have much confidence in Daniel Jones, and it's probably his last year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that's Daniel Jones at 30. I have Deshaun Watson. Not a big fan of him lately. Last year he played in 6 games, threw for 1,115 yards, 7 touchdowns to 4 picks, ran for another 142 yards and a touchdown. He's like okay at best, which is really weird because obviously when he was on the Texans, he was a stud. He was so good for the Texans, but then everything happened. He went to the Browns, and he's been here a couple years now, and he has not looked good. Um, they have Amari Cooper. They traded for Judy, and they still have Njoku. Nick Chubb is injured, so we'll see when he gets back to help him out there. But I just I'm a little nervous for the Browns and Deshaun Watson in general. I do like Kevin Stefanski, and I think they should have some good play calls, and the line is good, but it's just so many question marks for Deshaun Watson. Like, is his head in the game? I don't know. I really don't. If he doesn't look good within the first 6 weeks, I think Deshaun Watson is done. I don't even think anyone else will bring him in after the Browns are done with him. With the rate, he's nobody likes him, and he has been playing poorly. So I can't rank him any higher than 30. I kind of wanted to put him lower. He's very talented. Obviously, we've seen what he can do, but until he shows his talent on the field, he's going to stay down at 30 for me. Now, moving on to 29, we have our first rookie quarterback, and that is Jayden Daniels, a top pick for the Commanders this year. Jayden Daniels, he has looked really good in training and in the preseason, so maybe some of you might think that this is low for him, but it's just the thing is he's first of all super skinny, and I'm still very nervous that he's going to be an injury-prone quarterback. But I also am nervous about this offense in general. Let me get to it. So his LSU numbers last year, he played in 12 games, threw for 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns to 4 picks, and then he ran for another 1,134 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. He won the Heisman, and he was a dual threat, dangerous weapon on the field anytime he had the ball, which was every play. So Jayden Daniels has a lot going for him, which is why he was drafted this high to the Commanders. And like I said, he did look good, but I just don't know about this offense for him right now. I don't think it's set up very well for him to succeed in year one. They have Scary Terry, a very talented receiver. I think that'll be great. After him, though, it's really a question mark. They have Luke McCaffrey there, Christian McCaffrey's little brother. Maybe he will take over the number 2 spot because they traded Jahan Dotson and they lost their other receiver in the offseason. So not really sure about who he's going to be throwing to there. They do have Brian Robinson, and they brought in Austin Eckler as well, so they should help him out in the run game. But also, their offensive line is kind of trash right now. And Jayden Daniels will be running for his life, I think, which he can do. He can do. He's probably going to be one of the best running quarterbacks in the league day one. But yeah, I just don't think there's enough talent for him to do very well this year. I think it's going to be a very difficult year for him. And I think there's a good chance he gets injured at some point as well. They do have Cliff Kingsbury calling the offense, calling the plays. I like Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive play caller, so I think he'll be fun to watch, and they will make some crazy plays. But I just think it's going to be a rough year for him overall. And in the future, he should be a good quarterback. Moving to number 28, we got Gardner Minshew, the legend. We love Gardner Minshew here. Last year for Indianapolis, he played 17 games. He got in because of injuries with Anthony Richardson. He played in 17 games, threw for 3,305 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And he ran for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. I absolutely love Gardner Minshew. I think he's very smart with the ball, and he is not afraid to push it down the field. He trusts his arm a little too much sometimes, but he's so fun to watch. I love him. He's just not as talented as most starting quarterbacks in the league, which is why I have him this low. Also, he's on the Raiders, which I don't fully trust the Raiders. Now, he does have decent weapons. He has Devontae Adams, who's a very clear number 1 receiver, a very good receiver. Jacoby Myers as a number 2 option is solid. And then the tight ends they are supreme tight end. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer coming in together are going to be phenomenal for Gardner Minshew to drop down to. The thing is, I don't trust Luke Getsy, the play caller there. Coming over from was he with the Bears, I believe. Luke Getsy, I don't trust him as a play caller. And with Gardner Minshew, I don't know. Their line is okay. They lost a couple starters. I don't fully trust them, and I do think most likely they're going to want to try out Aiden O'Connell again at some point. So, yeah, Gardner Minshew, I can't have any higher than this unless he proves it with the Raiders. I am excited to watch him. He's a fun guy to watch, but not going to put him much higher than this unless he goes crazy throughout the year. Next, we have Derek Carr. A fall from grace is being had with Derek Carr here. I have him at 27. for the New Orleans Saints. Last year, he didn't do terrible. He played all 17 games, threw for 3,878 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, and 40 yards on the ground. He's not a runner. But yeah, I really think the Saints and Derek Carr are just going to fall off the wheels this year. I really think it's going to happen. He has some decent weapons. Chris Olave is really good, and Rashid Shaheed showed some flashes last year. Alvin Kamara is still in the backfield, although he is having some issues off the field. So we'll see what happens with that. And I do have to note Taysom Hill is all over the field all the time as well. I love Taysom Hill. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Derek Carr. They brought in Clint Kubiak from the 49ers to call the plays. Hopefully, he can infuse this offense to do better than last year. The O line is in shambles, though. Their their tackles are just not there. Trevor Penning has been a complete disappointment since they drafted him, and then the only good tackle they had was it Ramzik. He might be done for his career with the injury that he has suffered. They did draft Fuaga, who I really like, but I just don't trust them to block for Derek Carr at all. And Derek Carr needs good blocking to succeed. He's not a guy that can move around very much in the pocket at this age. Um, so I don't think it's going to be a very fun year for the Saints. Now, Derek Carr is very skilled, so he can prove me wrong, but I just think he was a way better quarterback in Vegas, and I don't think he's long for New Orleans. We'll see. Maybe he proves me wrong, but for now, I have him at 27. At 26, I have the rookie Bo Nix. I love what I've seen from Bo Nix so far. I loved him at Oregon. I've loved him in the preseason and in training. He's looked very good, and Sean Payton, I think, is gonna be very good for Bo Nix. With Oregon, he played 14 games, threw for 4,508 yards, 45 touchdowns to 3 picks, another 228 yards on the ground with 6 touchdowns. He was phenomenal throwing the ball. Um, Now, for the Broncos, it is a bit questionable, I will say. They have Sutton, of course, and Marvin Mims. He's out to prove himself, unproven guy, but Sutton should be good. He's been injury prone lately. They have Javonte Williams coming out of the backfield. The O line is okay. I just don't. I really like what I see from Bo Nix. I think he's very smart with the ball, and he can make all the right reads. Um, and I think with Sean Payton, like I said, he's gonna be really good. It's just I think they're gonna need a few more skill players for him to really excel and move up from 26. So I have him there for now. I do really like him, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Wrong way. Next, at 25, I got Anthony Richardson. I was honestly not sure what to do with Anthony Richardson, like many people, I believe. Last year, he only played in 4 games, threw for 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick, and then ran for another 136 and 4 touchdowns. The big thing about Anthony Richardson, like you probably know who's watching this, he's just been so injury prone last year. And before that, he was very unproven in college. So he's very skilled, very talented, very smart young man. And he's going to be a phenom on the field. He's so talented and fun to watch. It's just he's got to learn how to slide and not take hits. That's his main thing. He took way too many big hits last year. I don't know if he thought, because he's a big body dude, that these NFL players weren't going to be able to hit him as hard, but I'm sure he found out real quick that this is the NFL. This ain't college, all right? So Anthony Richardson, he's going to be thrown to Pittman, and they got A.D. Mitchell from Texas, and then of course they got Downs as well. They have some good guys that he's going to be throwing to, and obviously he's got his legs as well. They got JT on the ground. I think Jonathan Taylor's in for another big year to help him out on offense. And then of course Shane Steichen, the head coach, is like he's a wizard of a play caller. He's been very good in his short career? He's been very good in his short head coaching career, at least. He looks like he can really call plays and confuse defenses. So he's going to be really good for Anthony Richardson. And the O line is, of course, very good as well. So I think I might be moving Anthony Richardson up from 25, but He just hasn't proven it enough for me to warrant moving him into the top 20, top 15 until he does. So for now, he stays here, but I am very excited to see what he can do on the Colts this year. At 24, I have another young quarterback in Bryce Young for the Panthers. This player I do have much higher than I did at the end of last year. He looked absolutely horrible last year, but they've changed everything up for him. His stats last year, in 16 games, he threw for 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Not great. And he ran for another 250 yards on the ground. Yeah, it was just kind of a mess in Carolina last year, and Bryce Young didn't have much to work with, and the coaching pretty much failed him. I liked the coaching staff with Frank Reich. I don't know what happened, but they completely failed Bryce Young. So this year, they brought in the wizard himself from Tampa Bay, Dave Canales, to run this team, and he should be very good for Bryce Young. 2 years ago, he was a wizard for Geno Smith, and Geno got paid. Last year, he was a wizard for Baker Mayfield, and Baker got paid. And now this year, it is Bryce Young's turn. I think he will be taking a step up. They also brought in Deontay Johnson from the Steelers to help him out as a number one receiver. Adam Thielen is back, who was Bryce Young's favorite target. And then they brought in Xavier Leggett from old boy from, was he South Carolina maybe? I can't remember, but he's a very talented rookie that should help Bryce Young out as well. And in the ground game, they brought in Jonathan Brooks in the draft too, who is coming off injury, but they've got a much more talented line or offense in general, and they brought in a couple O-line players, guards as well, to help them out there. So they're really putting everything together to help Bryce Young out. So it's in Bryce Young's hands at this point to see if he can be their guy. And I think he is going to prove that he's a very talented player and will do much better than last year, although I still think he's going to have a ways to go before we can call him a franchise quarterback. Moving on from Bryce Young, some of you may be surprised, but I do have Sam Darnold in Minnesota at 23rd overall. A lot of people think that Sam Darnold is a trash quarterback that is just going to pretty much doom the Vikings from the start. And of course, they drafted J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan, who was expected to be their guy, but he unfortunately got hurt and will be out for the season. So Sam Darnold it is. And Sam Darnold, I actually was a bit skeptical as well. Coming from San Francisco last year, he did get into 10 games, but he only threw for 297 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick, and then another 15 yards on the ground with a touchdown rushing. In the past, he has been very lackluster, to say the least, with Carolina and the Jets, but he's also never had as much talent as a starting quarterback as he's going to have in Minnesota. They have the leading wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, that he's going to be throwing to. And then they also have Jordan Addison, who had a really good year last year as a rookie. And at tight end, he is currently injured, but they have TJ Hawkinson at tight end, who's one of the better tight ends in the league. And in the backfield, they brought in Aaron Jones to help out, who is a bit older and might be injury prone as well. But with Justin Jefferson alone, I think Sam Darnold is going to have a much better year than people expect. Now, I do have him at 23rd, so it's not like I'm saying he's going to be a top 10 quarterback or even lead them into the playoffs, but I think he will be better than people think he's going to be. They have Kevin O'Connell as the head coach still, and he's still a very talented head coach, so I think he's going to help out Sam Darnold. And then the O-line is decent as well, so I think he's going to have a better year than people think. People think he's like the worst quarterback in the league, which, I mean, you can't blame him. He's been a really bad quarterback in his career so far, but I think his talent's going to really show off. He's going to show off what he learned from Kyle Shanahan and with his time in San Francisco, and I just think he's going to be okay. He's going to be solid. Moving from him, wrong way again. Moving from him, I have Russell Wilson at 22. This is another player that people I think are sleeping on a little. I don't think he's going to be nearly as bad as people think he's going to be, although it remains to be seen because he's got Justin Fields breathing down his neck. Now, last year for Denver, He played much better than people think. He played in 15 games, threw for 3,070 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And then he ran for another 341 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. With the Steelers, he has George Pickens, who is a solid starting receiver, and they got Pat Freiermuth at tight end. Those are two guys that I think Russell Wilson is going to find early and often on the Steelers. They also have Najee and Jaylen Warren out of the backfield. Arthur Smith calling the plays on that offense. And the O line is pretty solid as long as you trust the right tackle. Yeah, I think Russell Wilson's just going to be better. I think he's going to prove that he's not completely done, although I do think he's not going to be as good as he used to be, which he hasn't been in a few years now with Denver. He never proved to be the guy that they thought they were trading for. So I think he's going to be better than people think, but I also have him at 22, of course, so he's not going to be a world beater. I think he's going to get them wins when they need it, though. Moving from Russell Wilson, I moved to 21, and that is Will Levis. Now, I am in Lexington, Kentucky, so I enjoy Will Levis coming out of Kentucky. For the Titans last year, he got into 9 games, threw for 1,808 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He ran for another 57 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Will Levis is just, I think he's going to break out this year. I think he's going to be fun to watch, and I think he's going to prove that he's a guy that they can build around. He at receiver, he has DeAndre Hopkins, a clear number 1 receiver, and then they brought in Calvin Ridley from the Jaguars to be the number 2 receiver, and he's a very good number 2 receiver. So he's set at receiver, and then they also have Tony Pollard in the backfield along with the rookie from last year, and I think they're going to be a pretty dangerous offense. The only problem, that offensive line is not trustable to block for him. So if they don't block for him very well, he is gonna have some troubles. But with the talent that they have at the skill positions, I think Will Levis can have a very solid year still. They also have a new head coach in Brian Callahan coming from the Bengals. He was a very good play caller for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and I think he's going to be very good for Will Levis. I think he's going to be much better than what they had last year. So Will Levis is being set up for success, and I'm excited to see what he can do. The Mayo Man himself. Moving to number 20. We're in the top 20, and that is Geno Smith. Makes it to number 20 for Seattle. I am a huge West Virginia fan. I'm watching the game right now. Oh, it paused. Let me play it real quick. I'm watching the West Virginia and Penn State game right now, which isn't going good for West Virginia, but Geno Smith, I absolutely love, and I'm so happy he's finally getting what he deserves in a starting position with Seattle. That being said, he played 15 games last year, threw for 3,624 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And on the ground, he ran for another 155 yards and a touchdown. Geno Smith is a very average quarterback, average starting quarterback. You could say top level backup. I'm going to say average starting quarterback. And he has a pretty good offense to work with. He brings back DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, a great 1-2 punch, and then of course JSN is back from last year. A bit disappointing, but still very talented, and I think he'll do better this year. And then they have Kenneth Walker coming back as the running back. So very talented offense. The O-line is okay, and they are bringing in Ryan Grubb as the new offensive coordinator coming out of Washington College, and he did really well for Michael Penix in Washington, so, I mean, why can't he do really good for Geno Smith and Seattle? Yeah, I think he's going to be solid, and I think the Seattle will win some games with him. Hopefully, that is enough to keep him around. I like Geno a lot, and number 20, I think, is a solid spot for him to land. Now, delving into the teens. At 19, we have the rookie first overall pick, Caleb Williams, out of USC. For Chicago, I think he is going to be very talented, but also play much like a new rookie in the league. For USC, he played in 12 games. He threw for 3,333 yards, a lot of threes there, and 30 touchdowns, another 3. 5 interceptions. He's got a 3 in his name, too, his jersey number. I think this guy likes the number 3. But yeah, on the ground, another 142 yards and 11 touchdowns rushing, which is impressive. Yeah, Chicago set this team up for Caleb Williams. More, they did. They Justin Fields has to be sick when he looks at this offense that Caleb Williams is going to get to play with day one. They have DJ Moore. They brought in Keenan Allen. They brought in Rome Odunze as a rookie. That is a great trio of receivers for Caleb Williams to be working with. And then, of course, they have Kmet as well at tight end. DeAndre Swift at running back, along with the guys from last year. They're set up to succeed for Caleb Williams, and I'm pretty excited. The O line is okay as well, and they're bringing in Shane Waldron from Seattle to call the plays. They pretty much improved in every single category on offense for Caleb Williams. And I think they're set up for him to have a good year. I do think he's going to make quite a few rookie mistakes as he learns the speed of the NFL. But overall, I think it's going to be very exciting, and he's going to show the Chicago that they actually have a franchise quarterback and a solid future with Caleb Williams at the helm. So moving from Caleb Williams, we got my boy Baker Mayfield at 18 in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield is so fun to watch. I really enjoyed him last year, and I love that he got to prove himself and got a contract from Tampa. He played 17 games last year, threw for over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks, 163 yards rushing with another touchdown there. Yeah, they're pretty much bringing back what they had last year. Mike Evans and Godwin at receiver, Rachaad White in the backfield. The O line is decent to solid. What I am nervous about is that they did, like I mentioned earlier, lose their offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, and they're replacing him with Kentucky coordinator Liam Cohen. Now, I don't fully trust Liam Cohen. He hasn't looked great in his time in the NFL. Um, and I doubt he'll be as good as Dave Canales was. So Baker Mayfield is in line for a probable bit of a recession this year. But I still like him, and I still think he makes good, fun decisions. Although I think he's going to make more bad decisions with worse play call this year. We'll see, but I have him at 18 for now, and I am excited to see what he can do again this year in Tampa. See if he can make it back to the playoffs. We will see. At 17, I got Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray did look good when he was in last year. He did miss the first half of the season. He got into 8 games, threw for 1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Ran for another 244 and 3 touchdowns. He wasn't working with much last year either. So it will be pretty fun to see what he can do now that they added Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft. He is a huge target, and he's going to be so fun with Kyler Murray back there. He's also got Trey McBride, who broke out last year as the tight end. They brought in Trey Benson to work with James Conner in the backfield. And the O-line is a little rough, but Kyler Murray can move, so it won't be as bad. He's also short, so, I mean, it hasn't affected him too much this long, so I think that'll be fine. I don't really like their O coordinator, Petzing. I think they brought him in last year from the Browns, maybe, but I'm not a huge fan of Petzing, so I'm not gonna rate Murray all that high simply because I don't think the play call is gonna be all that good. But with Marvin Harrison and with Kyler Murray's elite ground game with his legs, and his good arm, I do think he's going to be solid, and that's why I'm at 17 overall instead of lower. So Kyler Murray at 17. At 16, I got Trevor Lawrence. Now, some of you might think this is kind of low for him, but honestly, he just hasn't really proven himself in the league yet, and he just got paid, so he's been around long enough to be a franchise quarterback, to be a top 10, top 5 quarterback, but he simply hasn't proven that with the Jaguars. So last year, 16 games, over 4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He just made too many mistakes. He ran for another 339 yards and 4 touchdowns. And they also lost Calvin Ridley. So it's going to be rough. They got Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, though. That they're going to have big years with Trevor Lawrence. They have ETN back. They brought in Brian Thomas as a rookie. So he does have guys to work with. And I do like Doug Peterson and the play call there. The line isn't great. They struggled last year to protect Trevor Lawrence, but I do think he's going to be good enough that the Jaguars are going to be flirting with the playoffs, but I just don't think he's proven enough at this point to rank him any higher than 16. He has had really good games. He's just also had really questionable decision making throughout his career so far. So I have him at 16. At 15, we have Dak Prescott. Some people will think he's too low as well. He's been pretty solid in his career so far. Last year, 17 games, he threw for 4,516 yards. I think he led the league, actually, or he was close. He was close to leading the league in passing yards. So he had a really good year. 36 touchdowns, 9 picks, ran for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. And he has some weapons to work with. CeeDee Lamb just got paid, and he is a very, very talented receiver. Brandon Cooks looks pretty solid still as a vertical threat for him. And then they got a good a good tight end rather in Ferguson. The running back game is questionable. They brought back Zeke, and they got the Rico Dowdle, I believe, as the other running back. The line is a little leaky. They lost some players, and they got rookies coming in to replace them. And I don't really like the O coordinator either. So with all those question marks, I can't put Dak any higher than 15. I also kind of don't like Dak. I'm a Giants fan, so I'm biased against the Cowboys, but I don't know. We'll see what he can do. It is a contract year for Dak. He's looking to get paid, so maybe he'll be have a little chip on his shoulder and he'll be playing with his head on fire, but I just with the O line questions, the running back questions, and not trusting the coordinator, I just think Dak might have a slightly down year from how he normally plays. And I think the Cowboys might actually move on from him as well, in which case he will be the highest tooted free agent on the market. So that'll be fun to see, but overall I think the Cowboys might be in for a down year, but we'll see. They have been good over the last few years, so we'll see what happens. Moving from 15, 14 overall, I got Jordan Love. People will also think I have Jordan Love too low because he was simply on fire to end the year last year. But I just don't trust this offense, to be honest. Jordan Love, he really caught on in the second half of the year. The first half of the year, he looked like he was very, very new, which he was. It was his first year as a starting quarterback, but he played in all 17 games. He threw for 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks, ran for another 247 and 4 touchdowns on the ground. I'm not sure about the skill position players. Jaden Reed, I believe, is their number one receiver. You could argue Christian Watson, but he's been injured basically his whole career so far. So I'm going to say Jaden Reed. I just don't know if I really consider him a number one. We'll see. He's more of a number two in my eyes. They got Romeo Dobbs too, but he's older and not that great. They brought in Josh Jacobs, who should be really good in the backfield for him as a running back. So maybe that'll help out a lot. And Jordan Love obviously is very skilled as well, and did prove himself last year. So maybe I'm a little down on him. The O line did lose Bakhtiari, but he's basically been lost for years now. So we'll see what they can do at tackle. Matt LaFleur has been a good coach for him so far. A good play call there on the Packers in Green Bay. But I don't know, man. I just don't fully trust the Packers and Jordan Love this year. Um, I think they're a little overhyped, and for now, I have him at 14 unless he comes out looking crazy. He's going to stay there. So, moving to 13 overall, this is the one player that I think a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me on. Now there's a couple more coming up, but Justin Herbert for the Chargers I do have down at 13 overall. Very talented, very skilled player. If I was ranking quarterbacks simply on how good I think they are as a quarterback, he'd probably be top 5. But I'm ranking them how I think they're going to perform this year, and the Chargers are simply not a very talented team right now. So I have Justin Herbert at 13. Now, last year, he did play in 13 games, threw for over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 picks before he got injured. ran for another 228 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. But, like I said, they're not very talented right now. Josh Palmer is their number one receiver at the moment, who he's talented, good vertical threat, but he's not a number one receiver. Ladd McConkey, they're bringing in as a rookie until he proves that he can be that guy. I'm not counting him as a number one receiver either. He should have a lot of yards though. He should be making plays for him. At running back, they brought in Gus Edwards from the Ravens. He's gonna be a bruising back running through people, but also not very great in the pass game. So I just don't know who Justin Herbert is going to be throwing the ball to, really. They got the rookie from last year from TCU, Quentin, but I just don't trust him at all. He looked bad last year. The O-line should be good, so there's a plus game, a plus for Justin Herbert. He should have time to throw, which with Justin Herbert's skill set, maybe that means it doesn't matter how skilled his receivers are. But until they show that, he is going to stay at 13 for me. Moving to 12 overall, we got Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I do have the MVP at 12 overall. Yeah, I'm just not a huge Lamar Jackson guy, even after the MVP, man. He played in 16 games, threw for 3,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 7 picks. Amazing runner. He ran for another 821 yards and 5 touchdowns. This was mostly without his top target, Mark Andrews, who is going to be back this year. They got Zay Flowers and Batman back at receiver. And they brought in Derrick Henry, the beast running back, to lead the backfield. Lamar and Derrick Henry alone are going to be very dangerous. So maybe I have him ranked too low. Maybe he's a top 10 quarterback. I'm just still not convinced. I don't know what you can do to convince me that this guy is a top quarterback. But I just don't like him. I don't trust him. Maybe he's got to win a Super Bowl. I don't know. But they got Todd Monken back. He's been a good play caller last year for him. I think the O-line, honestly, is the main reason why I have Lamar Jackson at 12 instead of in the top 10. The O-line lost more than half of the starters this year, and they have a lot of question marks starting for him. So Lamar, I think, could be doing a lot more running than usual this year, and he already does a lot of running. So we'll see. Like I keep saying, we'll see. But Lamar Jackson is at 12 for me. At 11, another guy that is uber talented, that is usually way higher than this, is Josh Allen. I have him at 11th overall. Last year, he was, of course, quite good. 17 games, 4,306 yards, 29 touchdowns, but with the new coordinators, he threw 18 interceptions. He ran for another 524 yards on the ground with 15 touchdowns running, which is crazy. But yeah, Josh Allen lost his top target in the offseason, Stephon Diggs, and I think that is going to really affect his play. His top target right now is probably the tight end, Dalton Kincaid, who's very talented, but still pretty unproven. They brought in a litany of receivers to replace Diggs with Curtis Samuel. They drafted Keon Coleman, who might be their number one receiver. He's funny, but is he going to be talented enough for the NFL as a number one? We'll see. They got James Cook still in the backfield. Joe Brady's going to be calling the plays. He's officially their offensive coordinator. And the O-line is okay, I suppose. I just think it's going to be a down year for the Bills. I think they're going to be battling for a wild card berth. I don't think they're going to be taking the division quite as easily as they have in the past. So I think it's going to be a rough year, and we're going to really, really be able to see how good Josh Allen is now that he does not have that number one receiver. Moving from Josh Allen, we're into the top 10, and yes, some of you might be surprised, maybe even shocked, but I have Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, getting into the top 10. I think he's going to have a huge year. I really do. I think he might have the best year of his career, and he's had some pretty good years. Last year for Minnesota, he got into 8 games before he went down with the Achilles. threw for 2,331 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He doesn't have anything on the ground. He ran for 25 yards, but he was on pace last year to break records in Minnesota. He looked so good. Now, obviously, he's going to be coming off that Achilles, so he might start off slow. We'll see. But he just has so much talent to work with in Atlanta that I think he's going to have a great year. And Atlanta's going to be so happy that they signed him. They got Drake London. They got Kyle Pitts at tight end. Bijan Robinson, Algier at running back. They have so many talented weapons on this offense that I will be shocked if he doesn't do really good. And then they brought in Zach Robinson, of course, to call plays for him, coming from the Rams, learning under Sean McVay. I'm excited as hell to see this Atlanta offense. I'm ready to see it. They have a really good offensive line blocking for him too, which Kirk Cousins needs a good line. So I'm just really excited to see Kirk Cousins, and I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year. Moving into number 9, we're in the single digits, baby. I got Jared Goff. This one might surprise people too, but Jared Goff honestly had an extremely good year last year. He really proved himself. He played in 17 games, 4,575 yards, 30 touchdowns to 12 picks. He ran for 21 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was lights out, baby, and he he was this close. Can you see me? This close to getting to a Super Bowl again. He got to a Super Bowl with the Rams before, mind you. He almost got the Detroit Lions, to the Super Bowl. That's impressive, bro. Jared Goff is their franchise quarterback, and he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god. He's got Sam Laporta at tight end, very talented. He's got Gibbs at running back. The O-line is one of the best in the league. Ben Johnson, one of the better play callers in the league. They got it all, baby, and Jared Goff is going to be a top 10 quarterback. I will be shocked if he is not a top 10 quarterback this year. Jared Goff, baby. Bring him to the Super Bowl. Let's go. Moving to 8, another one that might surprise people is Brock Purdy for San Francisco. He was extremely good last year. He got them to the Super Bowl. They did lose, but he got them there. They're a very talented team. If this was ranking, like I said earlier, if this was ranked with quarterback skill level alone, Brock Purdy would be much lower, of course. He'd be behind Justin Herbert. He'd be behind Lamar Jackson. He'd be behind Josh Allen, Dak Prescott even. But this is based on how good they're going to be this year, in my opinion. So I have him at 8 overall. Last year, he played in 16 games, threw for 4,280 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 11 picks. He ran for another 144 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This is such a skilled team still. They bring back Christian McCaffrey. They bring back Brandon Ayuk. They just paid him. They bring back Deebo Samuel, the very talented receiver. He could get traded even, but they still have him for now. They have Ricky Pearsall in the draft. Could be Deebo's replacement. They got George Kittle at tight end. They got Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. They got everything that you need for a young quarterback to succeed. And I think that's exactly what Brock Purdy is going to do this year. I think he's going to be amazing. The only question mark I do have for Brock Purdy in this offense is Trent Williams' contract dispute right now. Trent Williams is one of the better tackles in the league. And if the 49ers don't have Trent Williams blocking Brock Purdy's blind side, it could be dangerous. It could be really dangerous for Brock Purdy, for the health of this team. I honestly think Trent Williams not playing for them could make them lose out on another Super Bowl berth. I think he's that good. So please, 49ers, for the love of God, break the bank open and pay Trent Williams. I know you're already paying him. Pay him what he wants. Pay him more. You need to do it. You do not have a replacement for Trent Williams. Brock Purdy, to succeed, needs Trent Williams on the field blocking for him. So yeah, Brock Purdy at 8. Moving to 7, we got Tua Tagovailoa. He was the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa were pretty interesting last year. They had an extremely hot start to the season. The whole first half of the season, they were unstoppable, on fire, every single time they had the ball on offense. Tua played 17 games, 4,624 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 14 picks, and he ran for another 74 yards on the ground. Not really a rushing quarterback, but they're such a talented team, and he's a very accurate and smart quarterback. Also, the only lefty in the league. Although Michael Penix, if he plays, that's another lefty to look forward to. But Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, they have so many top level talents on this offense. Raheem Mostert, like, they're so dangerous. I absolutely love to see what they're going to be able to do. The issues is that they did have quite a bit of a fall from grace to end the year. Almost missed the playoffs and then lost in the playoffs, of course. They looked like they might be overmatched by the top level teams. They also lost their defensive coordinator again. Also, their O-line is spotty at best. They're very questionable. And Tua Tagovailoa also has some pretty serious injury concerns, although he did stay healthy last year. His past injury concerns still could creep back in. Let's hope they don't. But I still do trust Mike McDaniel and this offense to make extremely big top level plays and have a lot of 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus plays in the book. So I do think they're still going to be very good. That's why I have them at 7th overall. But this is one of the top quarterbacks that I am a little nervous to have placed this high, because I could see the Dolphins go downhill a little bit this year. I mean, Tyreek Hill is getting older. He did say he's not going to be playing for too much longer. But I still really like this offense, and I still think they're going to be very dangerous. So I have him at 7 for now. I am a little nervous he might be on his way down, but we'll see. At 6 overall, I got Matt Stafford. For the Rams, Matt Stafford proved that he is back. The injuries are behind him, and he is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback still. Last year, he played 15 games, threw for 3,965 yards, 24 touchdowns to 11 picks, 65 yards on the ground. He's not running at his age. Yeah, he's very smart. He still has a cannon for an arm, and he still makes all the right decisions. Although, he's always been a bit of a gunslinger, so he is going to be throwing picks as well. But yeah, Puka Nacua, the breakout year last year. They got Cooper Kupp coming back from injury. That is a dynamic duo at receiver. Then they got Kyron in the backfield along with the rookie that they just brought in, Tyler Higbee at tight end. They still got Sean McVay calling the plays. And their O-line is much improved from 2 years ago. They're a very good O-line now, so Matt Stafford is still set up to have uber success, and he is a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion, for sure. And I have him at 6th overall. And honestly, we could see him get back to the Super Bowl. They did lose Aaron Donald, but I still think we could see him get back to the Super Bowl this year. At 5 overall, I got the amazing rookie from last year, CJ Stroud, for the Houston Texans. The Texans no longer give a hot damn at all about Deshaun Watson. They have forgotten him entirely. He's in the rear view. CJ Stroud looks like he is already better than Deshaun Watson ever was for the Houston Texans. Last year, CJ Stroud's rookie year, he played in 15 games, threw for over 4,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Excuse me. I think I'm losing my voice. Getting too excited. But yeah, he ran for another 167 yards and 3 touchdowns. He might be the most accurate quarterback in the league as a year 2 player. CJ Stroud's so fun to watch, and they added so much more around him too. The Texans are going to be so good. I am so excited to watch them. They added Stephon Diggs, a number 1 receiver, a number 1 target for CJ Stroud. They already have Tank Dell and Nico Collins, who both did really good last year. Tank Dell coming off the injury. They brought in Joe Mixon at running back. Bobby Slowick came back to be the play caller again. The O-line is solid. This team set up CJ Stroud to go win a goddamn Super Bowl. That's what they did when they brought in Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. That's what they did with this defense. And CJ Stroud, he is going to be in the playoffs. 100% sure, and he's going to be making a playoff push this year. He's going to be trying to push Patrick Mahomes off of his pedestal, and I'm excited to see it. I have him at 5 overall. Some people might think that's a little high for a year 2 player. I think by the end of the year, he could be even higher than 5 overall. I love CJ Stroud, and I can't wait to see what this dude can do. At 4 overall, the comeback kid, I got Joe Burrow, his injury prone ass himself. Last year, he played in 10 games, threw for 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 6 picks before he got injured for a second or third time on the season. He is always freaking injured. What the heck, Joe? Although, he has a new haircut. I don't know if y'all saw it. It's the new Slim Shady, baby. Please stand up. In Cincinnati, they got Ja'Marr Chase, rather. He is looking for a contract, but they're going to pay him, I believe. They got T. Higgins. They got Tyler Boyd. Zach Moss is taking over in the running game. He's a good pass-catching back for Joe Burrow. One of the big questions I do have for this offense is that they did lose Brian Callahan as their coordinator. They're promoting Dan Pitcher, the quarterback coach, I believe he was, to be the new coordinator. He did learn a lot from Brian Callahan, so I don't think they're going to be missing too much, but it remains to be seen if Dan Pitcher can pick up and step into the shoes of Brian Callahan and lead this team on offense. But either way, Joe Burrow, I think, barring one quarterback in the league, I think Joe Burrow probably has the most it factor out of anyone. Because he's not a guy that can really move too much on his legs. He's got a really good arm, but it's not the best in the league. And he's pretty accurate, but not the most accurate either. He just has that thing about him. He's got that strut. He's got that just that thing, that factor that a lot of people just don't have, where if he's got the ball in his hands, he's going to go win that frickin' game. That's what Joe Burrow does. So as long as he stays healthy, the Bengals should be in playoffs and in contention for the Super Bowl, as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy. So I have him at 4 overall, and I'd be shocked if he moves down at all, to be real. Unless CJ Stroud really, really lights up. But yeah, Joe Burrow, love the dude. Kind of hate his new hair, to be real, even though I did say Slim Shady. I kind of hate it on Joe Burrow. We'll see. I miss the flip, man. He could flip his hair and stuff. I miss that. But we'll see. Maybe it'll grow on me. Moving to number 3 overall. This is a very questionable spot. But I have Aaron Rodgers at 3rd overall for the New York Jets. Last year, he played about 2 snaps before he was out for the season with an injury. Classic Jets. But at 40, over 40, he could be very sapped of talent with that injury, and maybe he'll be scared to take hits now. We'll see, but Aaron Rodgers is just so smart with the ball. He's always been one of the smartest players with the ball in his hands. He almost always makes the right throws and the right reads. He's always quick to read defenses. He beats the defenders to every move on the board. Big chess player out there. But like I said, coming from that injury, maybe 3rd overall is a little high. But I love Aaron Rodgers, and I love this offense. Now, I'm not going to talk about his stats last year because they're literally like all zeros because he got hurt so early. So the year before for Green Bay, 17 games, he threw for 3,695 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Another 94 yards on the ground with a touchdown rushing. But for this Jets team, Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers' connection should be stellar every single game. Garrett Wilson should, in theory, be a top receiver in the NFL by the year's end. They also brought in Mike Williams, the injury-prone older receiver from the Chargers. I think he should be pretty good as a number 2 for Rodgers. They got Tyler Conklin at tight end. They bring back Breece Hall off injury at running back. Very talented running back. And then the O-line, they brought in a bunch of solid players as well to shore up the line. Now, the biggest problem for the Packers is, of course, the injury bug. Last year, it seems like just about everybody got hurt very seriously at one point or another. And it's just kind of like the luck of the New York Jets that that would happen again. But I'm not going to bet on that. I'm going to say that the Jets finally turn it around. They have a really good year with all these talented players on their team. Aaron Rodgers leads them to the playoffs, and Jets fans are finally happy for once. Also, Nathaniel Hackett, the coordinator, I don't really like him as a coordinator, but the fact of the matter is, Aaron Rodgers is basically the offensive coordinator himself because of how talented, how smart, and how long he's been playing. It's kind of like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning situation where it doesn't matter who their coordinator is. You know what I mean? So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, the injury bug is the only thing I'm really worried about with the Packers, and also Rodgers coming off that injury. But moving on, we're into the top two, and I think most of y'all at this point know who the top guy and the second guy is going to be. Number two, I got Jalen Hurts. Some of y'all probably think I'm putting him too high as well, but let me explain. Last year, Jalen Hurts, 17 games, 3,858 yards, 23 touchdowns, 15 picks, 605 yards on the ground. He's great on his feet, ran for another 15 yards running. They replaced their coordinator with Kellen Moore, and I really like Kellen Moore coming from the Chargers, previously with the Cowboys. I really like Kellen Moore as a coordinator. I think he's going to work wonders for Jalen Hurts. They also have A.J. Brown. They have Devonta Smith. They got Dallas Goedert. They brought in Saquon Barkley. And they have an amazing O-line, even with the loss of Jason Kelce. So this offense is just so loaded at every position, and Jalen Hurts is so talented. And Kellen Moore, with the good play calling, should have Jalen Hurts as a top 5, at least top 10 quarterback this year. I would be absolutely stunned if he wasn't. So I have him at second. Maybe that's a little high. I talk Joe Burrow up a lot. Maybe you should bring Joe Burrow up here. But I got Jalen Hurts at 2. And of course, that leaves none other than Patty Mahomes, the 2-time, 3-time Super Bowl champ himself. He's just a proven winner. All he does is win. Nobody can stop him. He's gotten very annoying over the years with how much he wins and how much of kind of a dick he's started to become. But I mean, I basically got his haircut. So I am a fan of Patrick Mahomes. He's just annoyed the hell out of me lately with all the winning and the annoyingness of him and Travis Kelce, to be real. Last year, 16 games, he threw for over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 14 picks. He ran for another 389 on the ground. He's got Travis Kelce. He's got Isaiah Pacheco coming back. Wide receiver was the main problem. Rashee Rice is a kind of a problem himself with his legal issues, but he was their top target last year. They bring in Hollywood Brown. He's got injury concerns. They bring in Xavier Worthy. He's probably the most explosive college receiver coming out. So he should be extremely good. He is a little small, but just the explosiveness that they just brought into this team to pair with Andy Reid's play calling and a solid O line, even though they're replacing their left tackle. It's just like the rich get richer. You know what I mean? I can't move him down from number one. He was already number one, and they got better. So Patrick Mahomes rounds it out at number one. Hey, everybody, let me know what you think of my list, what you disagree with, who you would put where. If you think I'm doing Lamar Jackson dirty, let me know what's going on. Until next time, though, I love y'all. Peace.